They say you don't truly know someone until they leave you with $20,000 in debt and a broken home. I thought I knew Sarah, my wife, my partner for 12 years. She wasn't perfect, but she had this way of making life feel exciting. She could turn the most boring moments into something worth remembering. Her laugh could fill a room, and her plans were always bigger than life itself. But there's a fine line between ambition and recklessness, and I was about to find out just how far Sarah was willing to cross it. It started with little things. A shopping spree here, an unplanned weekend getaway there. I always chalked it up to her free spirit. She believed in living in the moment, in chasing happiness, while I was the one keeping our feet on the ground. I should have seen the signs. The unopened bills are stacked in the kitchen drawer. The nervous way she'd change the subject whenever money came up. The way she avoided eye contact when I talked about saving for our son's future. But I didn't ask questions. I didn't push, because I trusted her. And then one morning, I woke up to an empty bed. Her closet is half empty. The smell of her perfume still lingers in the air. At first, I thought she had gone out early. Maybe a quick trip to the store, maybe meeting a friend. Then I saw the note on the kitchen table. 7 words, scrawled in her familiar loopy handwriting. I need to follow my heart. Handle the debt. That was it. No explanation, no apology, just a bombshell dropped in the middle of my life. I stared at it, waiting for my brain to catch up. Debt? What debt? Then came the knock at the door. A thick envelope shoved into my hands. The words "Final Notice" are printed in bold red across the top. And that's when the truth hit me. Sarah hadn't just left. She had emptied our savings, taken out loans, built a mountain of debt in my name, and walked away without a second thought. The walls of our home, the life we built together, suddenly felt like they were closing in. And then I heard footsteps behind me. "Dad?" I turned around. My son Noah stood there in his pajamas, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. He was only 10, too young to understand the weight pressing down on me, too young to know how much had just been ripped away from us. I forced a smile, tried to push down the panic, but before I could say anything, Noah tilted his head, studying me like he always did when he knew something was wrong. And then, he spoke. And what he said next changed everything. I stood there, gripping the letter, my mind racing. $20,000. I read it again, hoping, praying that I had misread it. Maybe there was an extra zero, or maybe it was someone else's name on the envelope. But no, it was real. It had my name, my address, my responsibility. Sarah was gone. But her mess? That was still here. And now, it was mine to deal with. "Dad?" I looked up. Noah was watching me, his brow furrowed in concern. He wasn't a kid you could lie to. I knew that much. He had this way of peeling back every word you said, finding the truth you were trying to hide. So I swallowed the lump in my throat and forced a smile. "It's nothing, buddy. Just some boring adult stuff." He didn't buy it. I could tell by the way his eyes narrowed, scanning me like he was putting together a puzzle. But instead of pushing, he just nodded. "Okay," he said. "But if you need help, just tell me. I can handle it." That hit harder than I expected. He was 10. He should be worrying about school, about soccer practice, about whether or not his favorite show was getting a new season. But instead, he was standing there, offering to help me with something he didn't even understand yet. I reached out and ruffled his hair. "I got this, kiddo." But I didn't. Not even close. When Noah went back to his room, I collapsed into a chair, staring at the letter in my hands. How the hell did this happen? Sarah and I had always lived differently when it came to money. I was careful. She was spontaneous. She wanted to enjoy life, to live in the moment. I wanted to make sure we had a future. We argued about it sometimes, but I never thought it was this bad. I never thought she was keeping secrets. I grabbed my phone, my fingers shaking as I scrolled through my messages. I called her. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. Nothing. I texted me, "Sarah, we need to talk. What the hell is this?" No response. I checked our bank account. My stomach dropped. The savings account, the one we'd been building for Noah's future, was nearly empty. Thousands of dollars. Gone. I checked our joint credit card next. Maxed out. My hands were shaking now. I tried to breathe, but it felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. This wasn't just reckless spending. This was planned. This was deliberate. And she had left me to clean it all up. I didn't even realize Noah had come back into the room until I felt his hand on my shoulder. "Dad?" I closed my eyes for a second before looking at him. His face was serious. Too serious for a kid his age. Did Mom do something bad? I hesitated. How do you tell a 10-year-old that the person he loves, the person he trusts, just walked out on him? How do you explain that his mother didn't just leave, she betrayed us? I couldn't. Not yet. She made some mistakes, I said finally. Big ones. Noah studied me for a second, then glanced at the stack of mail on the table. He wasn't buying my watered-down explanation, but he didn't push. Instead, he pulled out a chair and sat across from me. Okay, he said. So what do we do? I let out a breath I didn't even realize I was holding. He wasn't saying, "What are you going to do?" He was saying, "What are we going to do?" I shook my head. I don't know yet. We sat in silence for a moment. The weight of everything pressed down on me. Then Noah, in the calmest voice imaginable, asked, "Do you think Mom is coming back?" That question hurt more than anything else, because I already knew the answer. I thought about lying, telling him, "Of course she is," telling him, "This is just a misunderstanding, she just needs time," but I couldn't. "I don't know, buddy," I said quietly, "but no matter what happens, we're going to be okay, I promise." Noah nodded as if he had already come to that conclusion himself. "Good," he said simply, "because I have an idea." I frowned. "An idea?" He grinned. "Just trust me, Dad." And for the first time since Sarah left, I felt something besides anger. Hope. I watched Noah as he sat across from me, his fingers tapping against the table like he was working through a problem in his head. He didn't look panicked. He didn't even look upset. If anything, he looked focused. Too focused. "Noah," I said carefully, "what do you mean you have an idea?" He shrugged like it was the most casual thing in the world. "Mom left, right? And she left us with this debt?" I nodded slowly. "So, if we figure out where she went, maybe we can figure out what she was thinking." I frowned. "No, that's not really." "I'm just saying," he interrupted. "Mom didn't just wake up one day and decide to leave. She planned this, which means there's a trail." I blinked at him. "A trail?" "Yeah, a trail. You always say everything leaves a footprint, right?" I did say that, but I had meant it about responsibility, about making the right choices, not about tracking down someone who had just turned our lives upside down. Noah leaned forward. "I need Mom's old phone." That caught me off guard. "What? Why?" He gave me a knowing look. "Just trust me, Dad." I sighed, rubbing my temples. I was exhausted and emotionally drained, and my 10-year-old son was sitting here acting like he had everything under control. "All right," I muttered. "It should be on the nightstand." Noah nodded and disappeared down the hall. A few moments later, he was back, holding Sarah's old phone in his hands. He powered it on and waited. The screen lit up, her old lock screen still intact, a picture of the three of us from a beach trip last summer. I stared at the image. We had looked happy. Had that been a lie too? "Dad," Noah said, pulling me out of my thoughts. "What was the password?" I hesitated. "I don't know, bud." He didn't look convinced. "Come on, think. What would Mom use?" I exhaled slowly, trying to push past the anger long enough to think logically. Sarah always used simple passwords. I glanced at Noah. "Try her birthday." Noah typed it in. The screen stayed locked. He tried again. Nothing. He stared at the screen, deep in thought. Then he grinned. "What about my birthday?" I froze. Noah entered his birthday. The screen unlocked. I swallowed hard. Noah just nodded, like he had expected that to work. "Figures," he muttered. I sat back, shaking my head. "I don't even want to know how you thought of that." "She loves me," he said simply, scrolling through the phone. "Even if she made bad choices, I knew she'd use something important." I wasn't sure if that thought comforted me or made me feel worse. Then Noah's fingers froze on the screen. His eyes narrowed. "What?" I asked. "She still has location services turned on." I sat up. "Wait, what?" Noah turned the screen toward me. A small blinking dot showed a location hours away from us. I felt my stomach tighten. "She's at a lodge," Noah said, tilting his head, "by the lake." I ran a hand down my face. I wasn't sure if I should be impressed or terrified. "You just tracked your mom," I said, more to myself than to him. Noah shrugged. "Well, yeah, she left us. That doesn't mean she gets to disappear." I let out a breath. "Noah, this isn't Dad." His voice was calm. Too calm. "She didn't just leave us. She left us with her problems. I just want to know why. I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell him that this wasn't his job, that I was supposed to protect him from this mess. But Noah wasn't a kid you could lie to. And the truth was, I wanted to know too. I rubbed my face. All right, what's the rest of your idea? Noah's lips curled into a small smirk. Step 1, he said, we make sure she can't spend another dime. Make sure she can't spend another dime? I repeated, staring at Noah. How exactly do you plan on doing that? Noah leaned back in his chair, fingers tapping against the table, eyes sharp with thought. Well, he said, we know she took money. We know she used your name for the loan. And we know she's still out there spending like nothing happened. I nodded slowly. So first, he continued, we stop the bleeding. I sighed, rubbing my temple. Noah, I appreciate the enthusiasm, but this isn't a game. This is real life. You can't just... Didn't you say the bank has fraud protection? He interrupted. I blinked. Yeah, but... So let's use it, he said as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Mom took out a loan without telling you. That's a fraud, right? I hesitated. Well, yeah. Then call the bank, Noah said. Tell them. I sat there, staring at him. He was 10. He should be watching cartoons or kicking a soccer ball in the backyard. Instead, he was sitting here plotting financial damage control like a corporate lawyer. I exhaled. All right, fine. Let's see what happens. I grabbed my phone, scrolled to the bank's number, and pressed call. A robotic voice answered. Welcome to First National Bank. Please hold while we connect you. Noah watched me carefully as I tapped my fingers on the table. After a few minutes, a human voice finally came on the line. Thank you for calling First National Bank. How can I assist you today? I took a deep breath. Yeah, Tu just got a notice about a loan in my name, but here's the thing. I never took out a loan. There was a pause. Then, I see. Can you confirm your full name and account details? I gave them the information, my pulse taking higher with each second. Thank you, Mr. Jacobs, the representative said. I'm pulling up the details now. I could hear typing on the other end. Then a soft hum. All right, I see the loan in question. It was approved last month for $20,000. My jaw clenched. Right, and I didn't apply for that. Another pause. Then, can you confirm if anyone else had access to your accounts? I swallowed hard. My wife, well, ex-wife, I guess. But she took out this loan without telling me. She left. The rep's tone shifted slightly. I see. That may constitute fraud. If you didn't authorize this, we need to escalate it for investigation. Noah's eyes lit up as he mouthed, told you. I ignored him. What do I need to do? We'll need you to come in and sign a fraud affidavit, the rep said. Once that's processed, we can freeze the loan account until the investigation is complete. So that means she won't be able to spend any more of it? That's correct, they confirmed. A breath I hadn't realized I was holding finally escaped. All right, I said. I'll be there first thing tomorrow. I hung up and looked at Noah. He smirked. One problem down. I let out a laugh. A real one. You're scary, you know that? I prefer the word efficient, he said. I shook my head. What's step 2 then? Noah tapped his chin, thinking. Then his eyes lit up. We figure out exactly where the money went. I frowned. Didn't we already do that? No, he said. We know where she went. We don't know where the money went. I sighed. And how do you suggest we do that, Sherlock? Noah grinned. Easy. You still have access to Mom's email, right? I blinked. I think so. Then let's check. I hesitated. Noah, I don't know if we should. Dad. His voice was calm and measured. She left us. She left you with this mess. She doesn't get to keep secrets anymore. I ran a hand down my face. He was right. I hated that he was right. I pulled out my laptop, opened Sarah's email, and typed in the password. It worked. Noah leaned over my shoulder as I scrolled. Most of it was junk mail. Shopping deals, old work emails, subscription renewals. Then I saw it. A payment confirmation. I clicked it. It was a bank transfer. A large one. I felt my stomach drop. $12,500 wired to David Carmichael. My hands clenched into fists. David, her boyfriend. I stared at the screen, my pulse hammering. She hadn't just left. She had taken our money and handed it over to him. Noah let out a low whistle. Wow, he said. She didn't even try to hide it. I swallowed the rage burning in my throat. Number she didn't. Noah tapped the screen. Who was this guy anyway? I exhaled. Some guy from her office. Noah tilted his head. Then let's see where he works. I blinked. How do you even know we can do that? Dad, he deadpanned. We just tracked Mom using a GPS app. This is child's play. I stared at him for a second, then shook my head, muttering, I'm raising a supervillain. Noah grinned. A good supervillain. He pulled out his tablet and started typing. Within minutes, he had pulled up David's LinkedIn, his workplace, his title, even a recent company photo. Noah turned the screen to me. So, he said, want to make his life a little harder? I blinked. What? He smirked. Let's send his boss some interesting reading material. I stared at him. My 10-year-old was plotting revenge. And the worst part? I didn't hate the idea. I stared at Noah, unsure whether I should be impressed or concerned. You want to send his boss an email? Noah shrugged. It's not illegal. We're just sharing publicly available information. I ran a hand down my face. This isn't a game, Noah. I know, he said. But think about it. Mom stole from us and she gave him our money. If we can't get it back, we can at least make sure he doesn't profit from it. I sighed. He wasn't wrong. But still, we need to be careful. Noah nodded. That's why we don't send it from your email. I raised an eyebrow. Oh? He grinned. We use an anonymous one. No links to us, just facts. I exhaled. And what exactly are we sending? Noah turned his tablet toward me. He had already drafted something. Subject: Urgent concern regarding employee conduct. David Carmichael. Dear Company Name HR, I am reaching out to inform you about a concerning financial matter involving your employee, David Carmichael. Records indicate that he recently received a large sum of money, $12,500, transferred from a fraudulent loan taken out under pretenses. While the legal aspects are still under review, this could reflect poorly on your company's reputation. We wanted to ensure you were aware before this issue gained further attention. Sincerely, a concerned citizen. I blinked. Noah smirked. Too much? I shook my head. No, it's worryingly good. He grinned. Figured they'd take it more seriously if it sounded professional. I exhaled. All right, let's send it. Noah quickly set up a new email account and hit send. That's done, he said. Now for the fun part. I frowned. There's more? He tapped the table. We need to confront Mom face to face. I stiffened. Noah. She needs to see what she left behind, he said. She needs to know we're not just rolling over. I clenched my jaw. And what exactly do you want me to say to her? Noah's voice was steady. Tell her the truth. I ran a hand through my hair. Confronting Sarah meant seeing her again, hearing her excuses, looking at the woman I once trusted and knowing she had burned everything to the ground. But Noah was right. She needed to know she couldn't just walk away from this. I took a deep breath. All right, we'll go tomorrow. Noah nodded. Good, because I already checked the GPS. I froze. And? He smirked. She's still at that fancy lake lodge, probably still spending our money. My hands curled into fists. Then I guess it's time to pay her a visit. I sat in the car, gripping the steering wheel and staring at my phone. The email from the bank was open on the screen. The loan account is frozen. Fraud investigation underway. It was done. Sarah couldn't touch another dime. Noah sat beside me, arms crossed, watching me carefully. So, what now? I let out a slow breath. Now, we make sure she faces the consequences. First, stop the police station. I walked up to the front desk, heart pounding, and explained everything. The fraudulent loan, the stolen money, the evidence Noah and I had gathered. The officer took notes, nodding as I spoke. We'll open an official case. If the bank confirms fraud, charges will be filed. Noah sat quietly beside me, his face unreadable. But when we walked out of the station, he finally spoke. She's not getting away with it. No, I said, she's not. The next step was custody. I met with a lawyer and laid everything out. Sarah's abandonment, the financial disaster she left behind. The lawyer listened, then leaned forward, hands clasped. This is a clear-cut case, he said. A judge will grant you sole custody without hesitation. The hearing was set for 2 weeks later. Sarah didn't even show up. The judge barely glanced at the paperwork before making it official. Full custody granted. I walked out of the courthouse with the papers in my hands, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. Noah looked up at me. So, it's just us now? I nodded. Yeah, buddy, just us. He smiled. I think we'll be okay. A month later, I got the final update on Sarah. She had been arrested. Bank fraud. Identity theft. Enough charges to make sure she wouldn't be living in luxury anymore. I stared at the email from my lawyer, processing the words. Noah peeked over my shoulder. She's gone, huh? I nodded. Yeah. For a moment, there was silence. Then Noah shrugged. Good. I looked at him surprised. You don't feel anything? He thought for a second. I did, but I think I ran out. I reached over and ruffled his hair. We'll be okay. He grinned. I know we will. And for the first time in a long time, I believed it too. The house was quieter now. Not empty, not broken, just different. At first, I thought the silence would bother me, that the absence of Sarah's chaos would feel like a hole in our lives. But the truth? It was peaceful. Noah had adjusted quicker than I expected. Maybe because, deep down, he always knew she wasn't the person he needed her to be. Maybe because he had already accepted what I struggled with, we didn't need her to be okay. One evening, I found him sitting at the kitchen table, scribbling something on a piece of paper. What are you up to? I asked, peeking over his shoulder. He slid the paper toward me. A schedule, color-coded, organized by time slots, chores, homework, free time, even Dad and Noah hang out. I raised an eyebrow. You're 10. You know that, right? He smirked. Someone's got to keep this place running. I laughed. A real, deep, genuine laugh. Something I hadn't done in a long time. You're something else, kid. Money was still tight, but without Sarah draining our accounts, I finally felt like I could breathe. I worked extra shifts and rebuilt the savings little by little. Noah, ever the problem solver, found his way to contribute. One afternoon, I walked into the kitchen to find him baking cookies. Flour was everywhere, and bats were smeared on his cheek. I folded my arms. Dare I ask? He grinned and held up a flyer. Noah's Cookie Fundraiser. 50 cents per cookie. All proceeds go to the Dad and Noah Recovery Fund. I shook my head, chuckling. You're serious? Very. He tossed me a cookie. Try it. I bit into it. Surprisingly, it is good. You know what? I said, nodding. We might just be onto something. But not every moment was easy. Some nights, I caught Noah staring out the window, lost in thought. Other times, I'd hear him pause when he passed a picture of Sarah like he was waiting to feel something. One night, as we sat on the couch, he finally asked, Do you think she'll ever come back? I sighed, staring at the ceiling. I don't know. He was quiet for a moment, then nodded. I don't think she will. I glanced at him. And how do you feel about that? He shrugged. I think I'm okay with it. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Yeah? Yeah. He looked at me. We're doing fine without her. I smiled, ruffling his hair. Yeah, buddy, we are. Life didn't magically become perfect overnight. But we had peace. We had a plan. And most importantly, we had each other. And that was more than enough.